Here we are on the front of our Dutchman Colorado 19 BHC. We're going to be doing a technical walkthrough on our unit, just like a technician would on date of delivery. We'll go around and touch on these components. If you want more information on the operation, diagnostics, or maintenance on any of these items, you can find that in our Helpful Hacks section on YouTube and just look up that particular item. We'll start up here on the front. We have our 7-way plug. That 7-way plug is going to transfer all of our lights from our vehicle that we are towing with over to our unit, and we're also going to have a charge line that feeds off of our alternator that's going to help charge the battery on our unit while we're traveling. It's also going to have the brake line that's going to come from your brake controller that'll control the brakes on the trailer. Talking about brakes, you're also going to have a silver cable right here. This cable, this loop, needs to be hooked to your receiver hitch itself, not your chains, not the hitch, but the receiver hitch that's connected to the vehicle, because if any of these other items are the ones that fail, this is going to go with it and it's not going to serve its purpose. So what happens is if something fails, that pin is going to pull out of that breakaway box, and that is going to activate the brakes on our trailer to stop it if this were to ever disconnect from your vehicle. Now that's only going to happen if we have a good 12-volt source, meaning that we have a good 12-volt battery on here. So we want to make sure that we do, so this safety device will work. While we're in travel, we need to make sure that that safety pin is all the way in and engaged, and we want to make sure that this cable is not dragging the road. Up here we have our power tongue jack. This is a 12-volt power jack. If we follow that line, we'll find an inline fuse in there. In the event that this is not operating, we go ahead and check that fuse and see if it is blown. Good way to tell is if our light is on down here, we do have 12 volts. In order to operate, we can turn that light off on. We have down and up on our jack. We'll hold that button down to do either one of those items. In the event that we can't get 12 volts to it or the system is just not working, you have a black plug up here. Pull that black plug and you have a crank handle you stick in there and you can crank that jack up and down. Behind that we have our dual propane tanks under this cover with our dual propane regulator. This system works by choosing one of the two tanks that you have here with that selector level. It will go ahead and pull from that tank that is selected until it runs dry, at which point it will give you an indicator, usually red, letting you know that that tank is empty, and then it will automatically swap over to that second tank and start pulling from there. Once that tank runs dry, of course you are out of gas, but while you're pulling from that secondary tank, you can turn that switch over to that one and have that other tank refilled. Behind that we have our battery storage center. We also have some resettable breakers under here with those red caps. Those are for our 12-volt source for our stabilizer jacks that are electric. In the event that those aren't operating, they will trip that breaker and then they will automatically reset once they cool off, so it's not a fuse that you have to go in and actually replace. We also have a 2-prong plug under here. That 2-prong plug is for a solar battery charger. If we want to hook a solar panel up with a controller and plug it into that device, it can go ahead and charge our battery while we're storing our unit. On the driver's side of our unit, we have our front pass-through storage compartment from the access right here. Right on the back side of it, we have a spot where we are pre-wired for an inverter, and we're also pre-wired for that solar prep system. That's if you want to get a solar controller, have it installed in here, as well as solar panels. All the wiring is already ran for that. Once again, also for your inverter. That inverter system is, if you have all that and you have a couple of batteries set up, that inverter can change from 12 volts to 110 to where you can operate some small appliances, maybe a TV, small AC, or plug in for phone chargers and stuff like that on the interior of our unit. Also on our driver's side, we have our exhaust for our Suburban furnace. That exhaust that comes out of there is going to be a little hot. That Suburban furnace is a gas operated appliance. Here we have our 30-amp twist lock plug that we'll use for power to our unit. We always want to twist that plug in and lock it in first and put that retainer ring so it can't pull out and we don't have any arcing or anything like that. And then we want to go ahead and connect it to our power source. We also want to make sure that our AC system is off so it doesn't cause any surges to that compressor. Also on our exterior, we have our cable hookup for that campground cable. We'll run a coax from there to here, and then we can have cable on the interior of our camper. We'll show you where those hookups are on the inside. So down below on the back of our camper, still on the driver's side, you'll find your dump station. We'll see it labeled here, gray tank, black tank. You can also tell by the valves the color of the valves, we have our gray valve and our black valve. So our gray tank is from our showers and our sinks. So soapy water, maybe a little bit of food from our kitchen and stuff. You can leave that valve open all the time when camping, as long as you have that sewer outlet hooked to a sewer input right there for it to drain into. So we can leave that open all the time for dry camping. Obviously, we need to leave it closed till we get to a dump station. Our black tank, however, is going to be sewage from our toilet. We want to leave that closed all the time until we're ready to dump. Whether we're done camping or the tank is full, whatever the case may be, we hook up our sewer hose, once again, into that outlet for the sewer, and then we open our valve and we allow that tank to drain out. Once we are done draining it out, we can go ahead and get our water hose and hook it up to our black tank flush, which is located on the back of our unit. We'll touch on that in a few. And we want to flush out that black tank. Now, in order to do that, once again, our sewer hose is hooked up to our outlet. We have that valve open. We hook our water hose up to our black tank flush and we turn the water on. What you'll have is a little jet inside the tank that's going to shoot onto the interior of that tank and flush out any debris that may be in there. Now, this does a pretty good job. If you're having issues, you want to go a step further, you can close this valve off and let a little bit of water build up in that tank, but you have to monitor it. You can overflow that tank, and that's going to be the customer's responsibility, and the damages are on you. So you have to monitor that tank. Once it gets to a level that you are satisfied with, open that valve and let everything flush out. Now, it may take several times to flush out that tank before you get everything out of it. You're still going to have a little bit of debris in there, but that's another reason why we have to keep water in that tank even when we're storing it. So once we're done flushing it out, we're satisfied. We close that valve off and we leave a couple of gallons of water in there. While you're traveling down the road, it's going to slosh around in there and knock any debris down. Now let's talk about that. We always leave water in that system. We always leave that valve closed, because if we don't and we have any sewage that goes in there, it's going to dry up and it's going to be a dry tank issue. Once again, customer responsibility. You're not going to be able to clean that stuff out once it dries up, and it becomes a big hassle. So always leave the black tank valve closed, always leave several gallons of water in there, and add some chemicals so it can help break down any sewage in there. And we only use RV toilet paper. We treat it like a septic system. We don't put any other products in there. Our chemicals are RV toilet paper and our sewage only. If you put anything else in there, it can get caught up in that valve or in the turns of the pipes and cause you some issues down the road. A little bit further up, you'll see this red and blue line right here. That red and blue line is for your low point drains. Whenever you go to winterize your unit for the winter time, so the pipes don't freeze and stuff, we'll open these valves so we can drain the water out of our system. Here on the back of our Colorado, we are pre-wired for a backup camera system. If we go ahead and buy that backup camera, hook it up there, we already have power ran for it, and we have that monitor in our truck so we can see what's behind us when we're backing up. Our bumper right here, if we pull the storage, those caps off the end of it, it becomes a storage for our sewer hose that we can put in there and then put that cap back on. On the back, we also have our city water connection. That city water connection is used if we have a hose bib at our campground. We can hook our water up and turn it on, and that will provide water to all of our faucets on the interior. To the right of it is our black tank flush, like we talked about earlier for that black tank system. When we want to flush that out, we hook the water hose up to here and we flush that system out. Below that is our Suburban tankless water heater system. This will provide you with endless hot water for your system, and this is a gas operated device. We'll go over the operation of it when we get on the interior. Now, we don't have a ladder provided with us on the back of this Colorado, but it doesn't mean that you don't have to maintain the sealant on your roof. You need to maintain the sealant on your roof. Check the rubber to make sure no tree limbs poked holes in the rubber. Maintain your rubber up there, wash it once a year. And you also need to check the sealant around your windows, your trim, your anywhere where there was a hole basically put in your unit. You need to check the sealant around that. That's required by the manufacturer every 60 to 90 days. You need to go around, make sure there's no peeling, cracking, anything like that, deterioration in those sealants. Otherwise, it could cause some water leaks and it will deteriorate your unit. These things aren't covered by the manufacturer after the first 90 days, so make sure you are jumping on top of your unit and maintaining the sealant on it. Moving on to the passenger side of our unit, we have our other passenger storage right here. We'll also notice a button right here. This button operates our LCI stabilizer jacks on our unit. Now, one thing that you want to do is level your unit from left to right using the stacker blocks under your tires. And this will allow you to level it out left to right by putting those under the tires, and then you level it front to back by using your tongue jack. Once it is level, then you will put down your stabilizer jacks. These are not leveling jacks. You shouldn't have the whole weight of the camper on those jacks. They will bend and break. In order to run these down, pretty easy. You hit that button down to extend, and the jacks will drop down, and just put a little bit of weight on them. To retract, you'll hit the retract button and they'll come up. Once again, 12-volt operated. You'll see those resettable breakers in the front. If they ever stop operating, you want to go ahead and let them sit for a couple minutes, allow that breaker to cool down, then it will reset and you can activate those again. If you have any issues where that system just won't operate, there is an override form on the other side. We'll go over that now. So here we are back on the driver's side of our unit, opposite of our motor in and our switch, and we have this handle. We can see this handle has a little slice in it, and it will line up with the post on that jack. We line it up and we can manually run that jack up and down if we need to. We have our 12-volt operated awning, which means we're going to have a 12-volt fuse. In the event that something happens, we'll go to that 12-volt fuse and we'll check to make sure that it's not blown. That 12-volt fuse is going to be located by our 110 breakers and our fuse panel. We'll look at that on the inside. Our awning is meant to be a sunshade only, not a rain shade, not a wind shade, anything of that nature. So anytime we have a storm come in, we want to roll that awning in. Anytime it starts raining, we want to roll that awning in. Sun's out bright and beautiful, leave that awning out and enjoy it. Manufacturers are not going to cover any damage due to wind, rain, or anything of that event. That will become an insurance claim that can be kind of pricey. So make sure if you leave your camper for an extended period of time, better safe than sorry, roll that awning in. You see everybody else rolling theirs in, roll yours in too. Now our awning also needs to be pitched to get rid of any dew that might be on it, or AC runoff from our AC, that condensation that will run off and puddle on that awning. If we don't pitch it, that water can puddle in the middle and eventually collapse. And in order to do that, we're going to just simply have this knob right here, loosen it, and we're going to slide it down a little bit, and then we tighten up that knob, and now our awning is pitched. It doesn't have to be a lot, just a small degree, enough for it to run off. You can do it in the front or the back, whichever you prefer. Whenever we are done and ready to roll our awning up, we need to loosen that knob and allow that shock to push our awning back up. On our entry door, we do have a friction controlled hinge that allows that door not to be swung open or closed from the wind, so that helps control it a little bit. And we have our steps down here, our manual steps. Flip those up and push them in to store them for travel. Lift up, pull them out, grab that handle, and drop them down for our steps when we're ready to camp. We want to lubricate that generally with silicone spray. You don't want to use WD-40 necessarily. That attracts a lot of dirt and dust. Anytime you see any paint chipping on those steps, you want to go ahead and paint it real quick. That way you don't have any rusting later on down the road. Next, our entry door, we have our GFCI protected outlet on the exterior. That outlet 110 operated. We can plug our griddles of TV, whatever we want out here. That is, once again, GFCI protected. In the event that it trips because we have too many griddles plugged in or that outlet got wet, it's going to trip that GFCI receptacle on the inside. When we get there, we'll talk about how to reset that. Moving on, we have our freshwater connection right here. This is to fill our onboard storage tank. We'll pull that cap off, stick a hose in there, and it'll fill that tank up. And once again, onboard storage, we'll use this if we don't have a place to hook up a city water connection. No hose bib or anything. If we're out dry camping or anything like that, we can store some water in here. We'll kick that 12-volt water pump on the interior, and that will pull water from that tank to provide to our faucets. Now, anytime we are using it, it's great. You have the water with you, but if you're not using it, it's adding extra weight to your camper that you don't necessarily need. So how do we drain it? Well, if we look under our underbelly right here, we have a white hose hanging out with a little valve on it. We open that valve and it will drain that water tank. So two reasons: you don't want the added extra weight if you're not using it, and then you also don't want that water to become stagnant in there, so don't leave the water in for long periods of time. You do have another set of LCI stabilizer jacks back here that's run with that 12-volt button right there. And then you also have a dorm fridge out here for your exterior pleasure. That dorm fridge is going to be 110 operated. Now think about this, every time we unplug our unit or plug it in, that fridge is going to be off and on. Anytime it's on, it's going to be cooling on the inside. It does have a little freezer section that's going to get cool, probably produce some ice flakes and stuff in there. You also have some condensation and water from the fridge. So anytime we shut our unit down and we're going to store it, we need to open this fridge, dry it out, get all the water out of there. All these gaskets on here are airtight, not watertight, so that water can leak out and cause damage to our wood that it is sitting in. If we don't do that and we damage that wood, the manufacturer is not going to take care of that item. So we need to make sure that we are defrosting it properly and getting all that water out of there. Also notice on our back corner right here, we have a quick connect for our propane. This will feed off of our propane tanks in the front. If we have an exterior grill or griddle, that's what this attachment right here is for. You can purchase that type. Attach it on the side, we can hook that hose up right there and pull from our tanks. As we walk into the interior of our unit, we can see our control center right here. This is where we go to monitor our tank levels throughout our unit. We have our battery, our fresh tank, our black tank, and our gray tanks. Now your unit's only going to have one gray tank on here. This is just a generic panel that they put on here, so that second gray tank isn't going to mean anything. Our awning can extend and retract right here. We also have our water pump. That is what we will use to pull from our fresh tank. Whenever that fresh tank is empty, we want to make sure that pump is off. If you hear it running constantly and the water's not running, we want to turn that system off. And if we have city water on, we want to make sure that that water pump is off. That way it doesn't burn up. Our exterior lights, that's for our awning outside, and that's everything on here. In the front of our unit, we do have some storage under our bed. We also have our antenna boost option right here and our park cable. We would hook a TV up right here, and we have our coax connection that will go to our TV. When we're using antenna channels, there's two buttons on here. One is for your antenna boost. So we want that antenna boost on. That green light on there will signify that it's on, and that helps boost the antenna to be able to cover the area a little bit better and pick up channels better for those air channels. And when we are using cable from the park, we want to turn that switch off to where that green light is off. The other button on there is if you were to upgrade and have the Wi-Fi option from your antenna system. That would take an upgrade of adding a router and that Wi-Fi capability on the antenna. That would provide 12-volt power to that for that Wi-Fi boost. This unit currently does not have that on there. Your unit may vary to where it has that, and you'll have that little cap on the ceiling that would notify you for that 4G LTE option. Over here we have our Suburban tankless water heater control. Let's take a closer look at that. For our Suburban tankless water heater system, you can just turn it off and on by hitting that power button right there, obviously, and we can set our temperature with our arrows right here to whatever our desired heated temp is. Now this system, not much to it besides those buttons, and then of course we can change from Celsius to Fahrenheit, but when you turn your water on, the system's going to run and there's nothing else to do with it. It's not going to give you any other notifications unless there is an error in the system. Turn your water on, let it run, and it will begin to heat up to that set temperature. We do have a rooftop AC on our unit, and it is controlled right here. We have our dump valve. This is where your air will come out. Being as this is the only place air comes out, you want to leave that open. You have a filter right here. You pull these two tabs. You want to clean that filter fairly regularly. In order to operate, you'll go ahead and kick it on to your cool, and you can adjust the cool temperature right here on this dial. And you can also adjust your fan speed right there on that cool as far as low or high. And you also have just fan option as well if you just want to circulate the air and not cool it. Now there is a heat option on here. You can upgrade it and add that on there. If you do want heat without the upgrade, you'll have to use your gas furnace. In our kitchen, we have our 110 microwave right there. Only going to work when we're plugged into park service. Down below that, we have our 2-burner Suburban stovetop. This is a manual light stovetop, so you want your lighter ready. In order to operate it, we turn that knob from off by pushing it down and turning, and then our gas will begin to emit out of that stovetop, and we want to go ahead and light it. Once it is lit, we'll go ahead and let it run, cook, so on and so forth, turn it off, just turn that knob to the off position. Now, anytime you change your tanks out or you bring your unit out of storage and you had your tanks off, you're going to end up with some air in your system. In order to get that air out of the system, you want to come to your stovetop first and light it and let it run until you have a nice crisp blue flame. I always suggest customers to do that before operating things like our tankless water heater or our gas furnace, because those will likely go into a fault if there's too much air in that system. This is the easiest place to go to in order to get that air out. Behind me we have our 12-volt operated fridge. Open it up, just our normal fridge. We do have our temperature controls right here, and we can turn that system off right there on that panel on the inside. Yours, of course, may vary as far as brand. This one in particular is a Connex. Once again, 12-volt operated fridge. Same thing as our outdoor fridge. When we are done using this unit and we're storing it and that fridge system is off, we want to defrost the freezer and get all the water out of there. Same thing with our refrigerator, so it doesn't leak out and damage any of the wood on our unit. And that will cause some damage, and the warranty manufacturer will not cover it. Down below our stovetop right here, we have our furnace vent. We'll go into the operation of that on our thermostat over here. We'll talk about that, but that is where the heat will come out for the gas furnace. Down below our fridge, we'll see our COLP detector. This is to notify you if there's any gas in the unit and let you know that you need to exit the unit. You can test it by pushing that button right there, and it will emit a sound letting you know that that alarm works. We can see the green light on here lets us know it's powered up. It is a 12-volt safety device operated off of your battery system, and that lets you know that it is powered up. Obviously, if we don't have a good battery and our converter's not working, that's not going to work. We also have a smoke detector in here powered by that 9-volt battery. We need to check and make sure that that's operating as well and change that battery out whenever needed. To the left of that is our 110 12-volt center. We have our 110 breakers, our 12-volt fuses, things like our awning that we talked about earlier are all going to be labeled here. And if we have a problem with those items, we come and check these blade fuses or our breakers right here to make sure nothing's tripped. You also have a little fan in here. That fan is going to be cooling off your converter. That converter charges your battery. It's a battery charger basically. When you're plugged into shore power, it will charge that battery in order to keep it maintained properly. Here we have our thermostat for our Suburban furnace. Pretty easy to operate. This is going to give you your temperature on the inside of your unit. To kick it on, you slide that dial over and to whatever your desired area. If you want it warmer, just keep kicking it up, and you will see that thermostat rise as it heats up in the unit. So obviously in our bathroom we have our shower, we have our hot and cold faucet right here, and on our shower head we'll see a little push button right here. That push button is to turn off that shower head. That can be used for convenience if we're dry camping and we don't have a place to dump our tanks. We're trying to conserve the amount of fresh water we use as well as the amount of water we put into that gray tank system. So we can easily do that by just shutting off the shower head right here rather than having to find that sweet spot on our hot and cold. If we're hooked up to city water and we have a place to dump our gray water, we have that valve open, we're not worried about it, you can just use that shower as normal. Above you there is a 12-volt fan up there. You want to turn that on whenever you're taking a shower in here to help exhaust the steam and everything in here, and that helps with any heat and humidity and any mildew issues that you might have in the bathroom area. Of course, we have our toilet right here. We have a push pedal down here at the bottom to flush that toilet. Water will come out, flush that system down. Only use that for number one, and number two, we treat it like a septic tank. We don't want to put anything in there besides the sewage and RV toilet paper only. If we put any other items in there, it can get clogged in the pipes. Now, number one, we can just hit that pedal and flush it. Number two, we want to barely depress that pedal and begin to fill that bowl up with water. We want to fill it up about half to 3/4 of the way. That way there's enough water in there to actually flush those solids down the drain and it doesn't get clogged in the pipe. So barely depressing that until the water comes out. We want to make sure that valve on the bottom is still closed when we do it. Otherwise the water won't build up. This is also where you'll put in your chemicals for your tank system to keep them smelling good and to help that sewage and toilet paper break down. That way it's easier to flush whenever you dump. In our bathroom next to the sink, we'll see that main GFCI outlet right here. In the event that any of those GFCI protected outlets aren't working, we want to go here, and this green light means that everything is okay. If we were to hit that test button right there, it's going to simulate as if that unit was tripped. So if any of those outlets are tripped, you'll notice that green light is off. We hit that top button, which is our reset button, and our green light will come back on. If it continues to trip and we have griddles or hair dryers and stuff operating on there, unplug those items one at a time and then go reset it, and you may be using too much, or you need to check your outlets and make sure they're not wet as well.
Well, we hope you found that resourceful, but wait, there's more information on our Great American RV YouTube channel. This channel right here, find the playlist Hap's Helpful Hacks. We go over different products in this unit, and we'll take a deeper dive with more diagnostics, more information, as well as helpful tips when you're out camping. Tell your buddies, tell your friends, like, share, subscribe, do all those awesome things on YouTube, TikTok, wherever you found us, and keep watching here at Great American RV Superstores, where we bring the how-to you.